Hey, Father, how are you?
Good. How are you, Matthew?
Well, since we had originally started recording about a minute and a half ago, and then this is actually the second
Take
beginning
two.
of our
Take
episode.
two. Take two.
Take two. Take two. We said that 3 times.
Unironically, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So how am I doing? I'm exhausted, man.
Well,
That's if I'm just shooting straight with you.
look,
The first take had a joke about how the biggest thing in change in my life has been purchasing a new car, but I don't like that
yeah,
joke.
and buying a new car takes a lot of energy.
Actually,
I want to
yeah.
stick with it. I want to own that
There was
joke
a
because it was
yeah,
ridiculous and it was
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Okay, so the joke is that instead of buying a new car being the newest thing is that my son was born. Does that make me a terrible dad? Does this joke make me a
No,
bad dad?
that makes you a dad because you made a dad joke. That's a
Because
dad
it's a
joke.
dad
Yeah,
joke.
yeah.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah, I can start
yeah,
owning
the only
those.
other way that you can make this more of a dad joke is to just say, "Well, Renee really did all the work." Uh,
Right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's terrible. That has been what I've been telling that's what I've been telling people. I mean, I not like as a joke though, because people are coming up to me and they're like, "How do you feel? Are you tired?" To which the answer to that question is like, "Yes, of
of course
course
you
I'm
are. Yeah.
tired." You know what I mean? But beyond that, what I say to them, because it feels weird to brag about being tired after having a child be born, into your family. Because it feels like a brag, and I don't want to brag. You know what I mean? You know how people brag about how they're
Hey,
so tired. You know what
oh
I mean?
yeah, right. Sorry. I was thinking of the brag being that you had a child, but no, you're right. The brag being, oh, like I'm so exhausted
Oh,
from
that's hilarious. I had a child.
like, no, that is something you should brag about. Like you had a
No,
kid. That's awesome. It's so good. It's
no,
such a
yeah,
such a
yeah, yeah.
gift.
No, I will brag about my kid. No, it is. But so what I'm saying is like, yeah, I'm tired, but I am less tired than Renee, which is both. In my hope is it's me trying to like not sound weirdly braggadocious about being
I'd like to
tired.
compliment you for
And
your vocabulary.
also, it's yeah, thank you. And also it's just accurate.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like cuz I can't wake up in the middle of the night and feed this kid, so she's the one waking up several times a night, you know? Um much to Well, I was going to say much to my dismay, not to my dismay that she has to wake up, much to my dismay that she has to wake up and is therefore exhausted, not to my dismay in that my son is allowed to eat food.
yeah. It's objectively good that your child eats. We're happy about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we can sustain him.
it's excellent. It's really good, and that I think
Yeah,
you're
no
you're
doubt.
accurately capturing the fact that there are things uh, that you can do and that Renee can do, and there are things that you cannot do and that Renee cannot do, and you've got to be able to accept
Right.
those limitations of yourselves.
Yeah. I mean, and that's been, it's funny, because I adapted to being a father in a very different way than Renee adapted to being a mother. And frankly, when we have Renee Day Part 2, she will be able to speak more accurately to her adaptation to motherhood. Um, that was a gross sound
You're
right
going to
into the
want to
mic.
just do a little
Uh,
bit of creative
I'll have to
editing.
keep it. I'll have to. I'm gonna put a lot of reverb on it. But
Well, now that you're a
maybe
dad,
reverb and
making
echo,
gross noises
and
is
then
kind of part of the deal.
yeah, and then the last time, this is what I'm, just so the fans know, we have fans. Um, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. But I will auto tune it and make a song out of it. Anyway, we can release it as a bonus
I
episode.
hope that that's the outro of this
but
episode is the auto
but
tune of your sniffle.
yeah, yeah. But I adapted to fatherhood by doing things like, hey, that rug on the floor is curled. We need to go to Home Depot now and buy carpet tape
Hmm.
so I can make sure this carpet on the floor, this rug on the floor, does not curl up and nobody trips on it. And so we're gonna do like a 7 p.m. Home Depot run and tape our carpet down until 11 p.m. And it's like things like that where you're like, because everybody always talks about how like the mother nests prior to giving birth. I went through it in a post-birth phase of nesting
You're
via carpets and
well.
and carpets and
It's
cars.
almost like there's the things that you can imagine to prepare for. Let's paint the room. Let's
Right.
make sure we have a crib, that kind of stuff. Let's stockpile diapers.
Right.
But then there's
Right.
the other things that are more like until that baby is actually in your arms and you look down and notice that curled up
Yeah.
carpet and you go, I could trip on that and drop my baby. Yeah, you're not going to think about it
Right.
quite in the same way.
Right. Yeah.
I've become acutely aware of this. I've had this experience where, like, I had a friend of mine visit. She and her husband came to visit, and they had their kids with them. And like, they just popped in the rectory really quick. And this was years ago when I was first ordained. And all of a sudden, I was incredibly aware of the fact that we had a glass coffee table that had pointed corners, and it was like right at child face
Right.
height. And I had never thought about this thing before. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, I was just panicked the entire time that they were in the rectory for 5 minutes before we
Right.
moved on
Yeah.
to like go have lunch together or something. But the
Right.
whole time it was just this
Exactly.
this absolute panic mode of somebody's going to die and it's going to be my fault, even though
Right. Right. Oh,
it wasn't my
absolutely.
coffee table. It was just there,
Right.
and yeah, you become very aware of how
Right. No,
not
but
childproof things are when they're not childproof. Yeah.
and it's funny. It's like it's why so and this is I'm painting with broad strokes here, right? But it's like you see a great lack of maturation in society amongst particularly
Yeah.
young men, you know? And I don't think it's an accident that that coincides with the fact that young men are not having children, you know,
Mm.
or not getting married. And I said it was broad strokes, right? But since this kid has been around, this kid being my son, well done, Matthew, um,
Is that his name?
has been
Well done,
around for
Matthew.
three. That's right. Yes. Well done, Matthew Sparazza. Um, but but since he's been around, it's been obviously only 3 weeks, right? I have noticed that like I have increased in perseverance. Now, granted, I am reading something through Exodus 90 about perseverance, etc. So it's like, but like, so the Lord's been providential there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But like, this is gonna sound silly, and I'm gonna share it anecdotally. So I purchased this car, right? And I was able to talk them down at the dealership, which felt like a very dad move, you know? And perhaps prior to having a son out of the womb, you know what I mean? Like in a very tangible way for the person not carrying the child throughout the pregnancy, right? I might have been very willing to accept their initial price
Hmm.
or perhaps even their first offer. But instead, as any good dad would, I went outside the dealership and Googled what percentage, what is the percentage of a depreciation value for every 10,000 miles a car is driven, you know? And I go in there and I'm like haggling with these
Good
people, you
work.
know what
I
I
love
mean?
it.
But it was like this sense of perseverance, and it was, I don't know, like it's a sense of perseverance that is finding its way into this example of purchasing a car, which at the end of the day is like ultimately pretty insignificant. You know what I mean? Like not in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things, you know, an extra $1,000 on a car is not going to impact my life all that much, you know. But it's like I noticed. I guess what I'm trying to say is I am quicker to get things done now. You know what I mean? Like I am better at prioritizing, right? I knew I needed a car. I knew I needed it at a lower price so I could take care of my son, so I went for it. I know this car came with one key because it was used, and they were like, "We will give you a second key." And then I called them and they were like, "It's going to be 7 to 10 days." And I was going to be like, "We're going to Pittsburgh for a month, you know?" So I was going to be like, listen, I can't wait 7 to 10 days, and I need an extra car because I'm going on a road trip with a newborn. You know what I mean? So I didn't accept that. I pushed further, you know? So it's like, it's almost like I have noticed, you know, a change in my, I don't know. It's not my personality, you know, but it's, I don't know, an increase in that virtue of perseverance, maybe, you know?
When you become responsible for another person, you you don't allow certain things to happen. Now that you're
Yeah.
responsible for
Right.
another person,
Right.
you're taking on more action, and that's not a bad thing. So I'm curious, Matt, what size shoe do you wear?
We're a
Okay,
nine,
so
nine and a
folks,
half
if you would like
sometimes.
to,
When I was in high school, I wore a size 10 because I was insecure about the fact that it was not double digits.
if you would like to help Matt in his journey in being a dad, white New Balance sneakers, size 9, can be sent to the tangent
Oh,
offices at.
beautiful. Yeah, perfect. It's exactly what I need.
Could you imagine? We just like you get inundated with white New Balance sneakers so that you can be more dad. That'd be
If
fantastic.
someone sends me white New Balance sneakers, I promise to take a picture of them in blue jeans
Or khaki shorts.
and a
Yeah,
tucked
khaki
in
shorts
polo
with a
shirt.
belt. It's gonna be great. Yeah.
Hey, New Balance is
Matt
kind of
also
sick
needs
now
some
though.
new fanny
They got
packs
some
if anybody
cool.
has any. It'd be great. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Um but you know what I mean? It was
Well,
like the my dad came and bought that car with me, and he turned over to me. I was like, I'm haggling with this dude. At one point I was like, here's the deal. The car you're selling me, by my estimation, with an 85% depreciation value, it should be this number. But this car has an extra 20,000 miles on it, so it should really be 72% depreciation. I
depreciation.
can't speak, right? Value. And so I was like, I should really pay you this number, but I'm feeling generous, so I'll pay you this number. And my dad was like, what the heck has gotten into this guy? Like,
I think it's great though.
apparently, I said, I'll be generous. I don't remember saying it. I said a prayer that the Lord would harden me for negotiation,
It sounds
and
like
he
it. Yeah,
did.
that's pretty good. I like it. I like it very much.
I am being braggadocious here,
Hey, but
to bring
it's a
back that
fun
word.
kind of a thing, right? Because you're getting used to being a father. So, all right, baby is 3 weeks old. Is that correct? Baby has been
3 weeks old.
baptized, has been
Yeah.
washed clean of original sin in the sacred waters of the
Yes, baby
sacrament
has
of
been
baptism.
baptized.
I
Yeah.
think that I have seen your child's
Yeah.
godparents more than I have seen you. Uh, I
That's
mean, if
funny.
you talked about
Well, I
detailing the
mean,
brand
listen,
new
we've
car
been
that you
we've
bought, it
been
might be a little
we've
bit
been
more dad.
hidden
But
away.
yeah, that was pretty good. No, so I saw your sister recently. It was really nice to catch up with her. Nice to see her and just kind of
She
hear how
said she
she's doing.
talked to you for like two
It was great.
hours.
It was really nice to see her. It had been a while, and then I saw Michael, uh, your cousin, and so yeah,
Yeah.
like I've seen.
I do know he's my cousin. Yeah.
I'm filling it in for the listener. For the listener, it's not for you.
He was the best man at my wedding. Oh, I see.
But there's it's I've actually kind of enjoyed that. And this I don't mean this in a negative way against you, Matt, but like it's been kind of nice not having you available
Yeah.
in the sense that I'm really excited for what
Mm,
you're doing, and it's so important that you have this time, like just with you, Renee, and with the baby to be together and everything. I really love that, and I like how seriously you've taken it. Uh,
yeah.
like you haven't been
Yeah.
checking in about every little thing. Like we've talked a little bit here and there, but like you haven't been saying, "Oh, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this done." It's like no,
Yeah.
you've been locked in on being present as a dad and being present for Renee as a husband, and I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, because I mean, listen, you know me, and you know that I like to think about things, right? And I have, I don't know, I don't know about meditated, but maybe contemplated this concept, right? Like Sister Miriam James. Is that her name? Did I get it right?
Yes,
Right.
you did
Okay.
indeed.
And she talks about, I don't know where she spoke about it, but I did read it somewhere that there was this woman that she worked with. Oh no, it was her own personal experience it was revealed to her in prayer that I believe, right, that it was that her mother had potentially considered aborting her, right? Her own mother. I think. I really hope I'm not getting this wrong. That's such a huge claim, right? But either way, it was something connected to her and Bob Schutz about how children pick up a lot from the first year of life. That I remember when I read it, I was really surprised by that. I was
If you look at the
surprised.
stages of human development, you're going to
Yeah.
see that babies, those initial contacts that they have with their parents, the way that they look at their mother's eyes, the way they look at their father's eyes, the way they hear their mother's voice, the way they hear their father's voice, all of those things, especially the really up close stuff, because babies like their eyes haven't developed yet to be able to see
Right.
farther away, and so it's that really close contact that is so important. So yeah, those early days are key.
And that's what it is. It's I remember when I read it, I was so surprised that there could be an impact so early.
Mm,
Obviously, having not remembering those days of my own life, but the idea that it like forms the foundation of a psyche. Um,
very much.
and so I'm trying to be present, although admittedly, it is tempting to hold him and watch something or hold him and read. Um, and granted, even there, I'm trying to make the most of those situations. But I think again, this kind of it connects back to this idea of perseverance, right? That sloth doesn't necessarily have to be I don't do a lot. Sometimes it could be I do too much. I do too much, and it's just not the thing that I'm supposed to do.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm trying to be intentional and do the thing that I am supposed to do. I'm constantly reminding myself that my primary vocation is Renee and Michael.
Yeah.
Um, and it is good to have a Catholic podcast, and it is good to, yeah, no, but seriously, it's good to have a job at a Catholic school, and those things are necessary and funnel into, admittedly, right, the primary vocation. Like I would be failing at the primary vocation without a job, you know, um, or at
Yes.
least, or at
It's
least
important that you work
but at
to
least to
support the
my
baby.
own
Yes.
it under my own control. You know what I mean? If people get fired, that's one thing. But for me to just
Yeah,
not
right.
work would be wildly inappropriate because I don't want to. You know what I mean? That would be just inappropriate. So I'm trying to take that seriously, I'm not doing it perfectly, obviously. You know what I mean? But
You're
even
only
if
3 weeks in, though.
right,
There's a
but
grace period.
yeah,
You've
that's
got
for
another
sure.
week, and then it's over.
And it's
Then
not like I'm saying you should never watch something when you hold him, because if I'm holding him at 2 a.m., it's like, listen, if I don't have a screen in front of me artificially creating blue light, I'm not going to stay awake, you know? Like, so I got to do something, and
yeah.
I'm not going to down a cold brew at 2:30 a.m. I'm not doing that, you know? So, so to an extent, but even there, I mean, because that's something that you and I have talked about, like my relationship with technology, and so I have been trying to like I'll put on like Ascension Presents and watch something from like the Franciscan Friars or something.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that I didn't say I listen to Restless? Um,
I was gonna say, I think you. Okay, I wasn't expecting a restless joke there. I appreciate it very much, but I was thinking maybe like you could drive up our listens on the tangent and
right?
make it
Yeah,
seem
yeah,
like
yeah.
we got more people listening. Yeah,
Right,
but
yeah. But but you know what I mean. So it's just this whole new chapter that I'm going in strides, and but man, it is life feels completely different. That's kind of what
yeah,
I'm trying to get at. This whole thing is like they say like, oh, greatest adventure of your life, but what they don't tell you is that like you think you're prepared,
yeah,
and it's like oh my gosh, I just had no clue. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
So you had 9 months to prepare, right? 9 months of getting ready and waiting for this day. But what do you think is the thing that you've learned most, or what's the thing that's jumping out at you that you absolutely didn't anticipate?
I mean, so there's two things to answer this question. One, with the 9 months, the advice that I got from so many people was like, you can't do anything to prepare, and
So you just quit. I didn't prepare at all. I did
right, well,
nothing.
but it's kind of true, like it's kind of true. I teased
Yeah.
that in these past months, saying like, come on, that's super helpful, thanks, but it's kind of true, like
I think that we've asked every single guest we've had on this
yeah.
podcast for parenting advice for you. So that's
And
that's
and
pretty cool.
and and no, I'm not saying all of them said that. Really, it's a bunch of people in my family and my friends, that said that. But as for the thing that stands out the most, um, I mean, there's a couple of experiences, right? So the first is one, and this is not necessarily in parenting, but when Renee was birthing our son, when Renee was birthing our son,
Why'd you have to say it that way?
because I like to laugh. Um, I like in that moment, I was thinking like I got this whole new grasp on what womanhood was.
Mm,
You know, I was like, oh my gosh, all of this crap going on in like our culture. It's just totally missing the point, you know? Like, and that's not to say, right, that like if someone was infertile, they're not a woman. I'm not saying that, you know? But distinctly, you know, a distinct feature of womanhood is the capacity, you know? And so to see that occur
yeah.
was like mind blowing. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I can't believe this, you know? And it kind of reminds me,
This
I
whole
think it's
thing is happening here.
but it's like my own version of, so Matt Fradd is very, I was gonna say very famously said, I guess if you're a fan of Fradd, then it's famous. If you're not, then you don't know who I'm talking about. But he has spoken about how watching his wife breastfeed for the first time revealed to him the evil of pornography.
Mm,
And where it's like, oh, that's what this is for, you know? And it wasn't necessarily that for me. Everything came into perspective, is all I'm saying, you know?
yeah.
Everything came into perspective, and I was just like, you are so impressive, you know? Like, that is what my reaction was. Like, this is unbelievable. I'm
Yeah.
speechless.
Do you think that anything in the way that you feel towards Renee has changed, has grown,
Oh my gosh,
having
yes.
having been through this experience with her?
Yeah, well, it's crazy, you know, like I'm and I think that she would, I know she would say the same. I don't know. I can't even say I think. I know she would say the same, if not even more than me, right? It's like I go to sleep at night and I can be an anxious person, you know. I can be a fearful person, right? One of the ways that the Lord has chosen to, you know, put my faith to test is he allows me to be afraid. Um, and so I constantly, not, I mean, I'm not talking with like spiders, you know what I mean? I'm like with legitimate things, you know, where, oh, what if something happens to my son? What if something happens to Renee? And I end up saying, Lord, I trust in you. Like I'm passing this over to you, you know? But like that was like a once in a while thing, you know?
Mm,
And now it's like I go to sleep and I'm like, if this kid turns over, that would be really bad. You know what I mean? Like if he like he can't sleep on his stomach. You know, that's a very, if you can't sleep on your stomach, you are in a fragile state of life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's like I have found myself putting him under like Mary's mantle on a daily basis, you know,
Mm,
like, and entrusting him and his safety to the Lord through our blessed mother. And like, I don't know. So I guess in a sense, like the dynamic between Renee and I has changed in the sense that our common goal now, like our love is external now, right? Fulton Sheen talks about how three to get married, right? But the reason he talks about how like the natural flowering of love is in children, right? And how a love that doesn't remain open to children, and again, I get that all of these things have caveats, you know, like if you can't have children, it's not like
yeah,
your
but that's
love.
not what we're talking about.
Yeah, you know, but it's like the flowering of love in children is in fact like an actual flowering. When a flower buds, you know, like it grows, it
Yeah.
expands, it becomes more beautiful, you know. And it's like I have experienced that firsthand now, where it is no longer, you know, wow, I mean, it's not that it's ceased to be, oh, I really love this girl, you know what I mean? It's just like we look at our love and it's external to us and it is visible. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I can see our love now, you know, and he cries a lot.
So you can hear your love
I
too.
hear my love all the time. No, I'm kidding. Right. But actually, I'm not kidding. He cries a lot. But do you know what I mean? It's like,
Babies do that, Matt.
I know we
I know,
keep.
I know it's this is going to sound like the celibate guy lecturing, but like, look, I mean, it might seem like I don't know this, but babies cry a lot, and I know that because I say mass when people bring babies to church, and
Right.
so
Right. Yeah.
I'm well versed in the crying of babies. I'm
Yeah.
not well versed in the quieting
Of
of crying
babies. Right.
babies.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
really know how to do that. I was like my goddaughter. is the third of four sisters, and basically until these girls are 2 years old, they hate me. They
Classic.
keep
I
me.
mean,
They just
it's
like,
sour rolls.
yeah. If ever I hold one of them, it's just it's done. So like I was with her family yesterday, and she's fine. She's very happy with me now. But the youngest, like they handed off the youngest to me, and I held her, and I got her for about 10 seconds. She was okay, and
Mhm.
then she just kind of looked at me and realized that it was me, and the waterworks started, and she's like,
Right.
"Get me out of here." And so
It could be the beard.
I'm a frightening person, I think, is really what it is. I'm
More
very
like
intimidating
not
to
Father Sam, more
infants.
like Father Scary. Am I right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it
Yeah.
was a terrible joke. I'm trying to live
No,
up to
it's
my
okay.
new identity of
Well,
dad.
what I always laugh about though is that it's like it's particular to these kids. So
Right.
one goddaughter didn't like me until she was 2 years old. My other goddaughter, every time she sees me, I get a big smile, and
Right.
and she can't wait for me to hold her and to
Right.
like, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason to any
Listen,
of this.
we keep telling him that he is doing a great job of being a baby.
All
You're doing a great job.
right, yeah.
We also
So
keep
that's the
telling
important thing I
him,
want to know about is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how much are you and Renee talking to him like he understands everything that you say?
I almost exclusively talk to him that way. I don't know actually if you're supposed to do baby talk. I've heard that you're not, but I don't know if that's
I don't
true.
know.
But I talk to him.
I think
I
some of
mean,
the baby talk like teaches them to become attuned to the sing song nature of conversation and the different tones that they need to hear. But I don't know if it really helps them to build vocabulary.
I I don't know. I mean, funny enough, I sometimes find myself just thinking instead of talking to him. You know what I mean? Like
He can't read your mind.
I find myself silent.
Okay, so you have accomplished getting a car, um, having a baby,
Yeah.
having that baby baptized,
Yeah.
all in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. That
Look,
was
I
big.
I am a big believer. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about why you decided to do the baptism so soon, but I am a big believer in baptizing as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Um, I understand there's always concern about like can we take the baby from place to place and everything, and with all respect to the experts that suggest certain cautions and everything, I still believe that like baptism as early as possible is a really good idea. So why did you and Renee decide that Michael was going to be
Yeah.
baptized bright and early?
So there's two reasons. One was I study theology and I think it was how doctors know too much,
Yes.
for their own good. I think it was kind of that.
Okay.
Like I know the reality of baptism and how important it is. As does Renee. I'm not discounting her,
No, of
right?
course
But
not.
she did, and she is really good at this actually, where she will say, "I trust you. You're the spiritual head of our household." Um, and that is an impressive skill and disposition to have in today's culture,
Mm.
in my opinion. Uh, but she's willing. I mean, not that it was my decision by myself either, right? She was a part of it, but I know the importance of baptism, right, and its efficacious nature. Um, and so it was really important to me that he be in the church, and have original sin wiped from his soul. And that is not to say, right, that I 100% believe, right, that if a baby dies before baptism, there's no chance of heaven, right? I think that depending on the situation, right, like theologically speaking, and you could correct me here, but this is an argument I would propose. Um, there's a solid argument for baptism of desire for a child that was going to be baptized.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
And again, there's also the fact that uh,
You
we
know?
can't look at baptism as the magic pill that that makes us, oh, you took this, you took the right pill, therefore you're friends with God. Nor should we look at God as being so petty that he's looking for like, well, you didn't take the right pill, so I'm sorry, you're out. Especially when it's a child who couldn't possibly have chosen baptism on their own, couldn't possibly have received that gift without somebody else helping them to it. And there's no way that God is looking at a child and damning that child because his parents weren't able to get him baptized in time. Like it's not happening. It's just not happening. And even the church has been clear about that for its entire history.
So let me ask you this, right? Because you're saying the church has been clear about it, and my understanding, right, officially, Catechism of the Catholic Church was that the church
The
gives
church
these
says that,
children to God in His mercy.
yeah, the church entrusts an unbaptized child who dies before baptism, like to God's mercy, because that's what we can do. The church has also, like, if you go back, there are we might have listeners of a certain age who were taught about limbo. Uh, Limbo was kind of
Yeah,
a proposal for the idea of what happens if someone was never baptized, but through no fault of their own had not heard the gospel, had never had the opportunity
right.
for baptism. What happens in a situation like that? And
Yeah,
limbo was proposed as this idea. The name sounds kind of bad because we think of limbo. It's like the lowest bar possible that you can pass under and still sneak in. That's
right,
really not what we're looking at. But the idea of limbo is that it was a place of perfect natural happiness. It wasn't supernatural happiness, but it was perfect natural happiness. There was no suffering. There was no pain.
right,
And there was, through nature and through what is natural, through natural happiness, there was the knowledge of the presence of God. Um, but where limbo kind of fell short as a proposed idea, and that's all it ever was this is like
yeah,
we're speculating on what this might be, because in the end, until we get there, we're not going to know. And that's an important thing
right,
for us to keep in mind as theologians, as believers, right? Until we get
right,
there, we're not going to know the whole thing. But there's also something missing, which limbo allows for God's mercy to a certain extent,
right.
but it doesn't necessarily allow for God's mercy in that super abundant sense,
Yeah,
where like everything, where God provides for everything, God overcomes every obstacle. And I think that's kind of the thing. But nevertheless, even though the church has
yeah.
never officially taught that limbo is to be believed, right? That there's this thing,
Hmm.
even though the church's understanding has grown over time, especially about the mercy of God, we've been able to articulate better what it means when we say that God is all merciful. Um,
Right.
all that said, all that being true, all that being held as something of great value, um, the church still says you should baptize your baby as soon as possible.
Right. And to be clear, right? Like, admittedly, a piece of it was like, I'm cool with, a piece of it was like, I am not afraid that if my son, please Lord, no, right, would die prior to being baptized. I am not terrified my son is not going to be saved, right? Because I know God is all merciful and I know I was going to baptize him. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And there's validity to that. I said, but I also know that God gave us baptism for a reason. And baptism actually does this thing that I would be hopeful would occur even if he weren't baptized in time, quote unquote, in time. And as a baptized person, he receives that original justification, right? But also he becomes adopted. He becomes a son of God. You know what I mean? It's like, and I want that for my son, so I'm gonna baptize him. And I know that if I baptize him at 2 weeks and instead of at 8 weeks, I won't have a gigantic party for him. And baptism is something that's worth celebrating. But heck, I'll just throw a baptism party for him later. You know what I mean? Like, that's okay. We can do that. You know,
Or you can
but I'm gonna
save
get
that
him
money on the
baptized.
baptism party and put it towards your car.
Right, right, and it's like, but you know what I mean. It was like I recognize that fear is not the correct attitude, but also procrastination it's not the correct move. You know what I mean? And to an extent, that is how I felt. I was like, where is the line here for me? That is, I am just procrastinating getting this done because I know I should, you know? And like, heck, people were baptized on the way home from like Benedict the 16th. He was baptized on the way home from the hospital. You know what I
No,
mean?
not even.
Like,
He was taken out of his home and across the street to the church and then back into his home. He was
right,
born at home. His godparents came and got him, took him to the church. His
right.
parents weren't even there.
Right. And so a bunch of this was like in my head, I was like, this idea of waiting seems like a very modern thing, You know what I mean?
Hmm.
If you recognize that infants should be baptized, you know what I mean? Right? Then the idea of like waiting super long, that's pretty modern, you know what I mean? And not to say that sh- things that are strictly, like developed in a modern way. I don't know, you know what I mean? It's not like if we just figured out something. I'm phrasing this poorly.
Look, I'm a huge fan of
The
telling
the
people
language is
have the baptism
yeah.
as early as you can. Um,
Yeah.
once you know that you're going to have a baby, schedule the baptism.
Right,
Just
and
get it
we didn't
scheduled.
do that. You know what? And we didn't do that, and a big reason was because this was our first kid, so we didn't know how to go about it.
Sure,
You know what I mean? We were
but
like,
but you still
we
did it
had a
really fast.
conversation. Yeah, but we did it fast, and it felt frantic because we planned it on Thursday, and he was baptized on Sunday.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
I love
Like,
it.
yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, we got quote unquote we got lucky in the sense that like Father Suarez was like, I know you guys, so this can happen, but with anyone else, this would like not be how I could do this, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and we were
figure
like, yeah, but you do know us, so it's fine.
you find out that you're going to have a baby. Renee finds out she's pregnant, and you guys start the process of preparing to have a kid. Right?
Right.
What if we had a sense that included in that process of all the preparation, so doctor's appointments, um, getting things ready in your nursery, the baby
Yeah.
shower, all the other stuff like reading among your reading for like how to have a baby, your parenting books
Right.
and everything. What if included in that was preparation for baptism? And if
Right.
that was just the natural thing for us to do, to say, yeah, during this time, we're going to also prepare for the baptism and schedule it. And then you can, because everybody always says to what do you say to a woman when she's pregnant? When do you do?
Right.
Like people always want to know. Now you have to be careful with that question, right? Because what if like you and I
Right.
are both Brian
Yeah.
Regan fans, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When's that baby due? What baby? Oh no.
Right.
So you got to be careful, like be real sensitive. Like if
Right.
you
Yeah.
know that somebody's going to have a baby, the most natural question that people will ask is the due date. And
Right.
so what that means is that you've got a general idea of when that baby's coming.
Right. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
that gives everybody
And I
else
had
time to
said to
figure it
Renee,
out. Make their travel
and I had
arrangements to
said to
come and
Renee,
everything.
like, I had said to Renee, I wish we had planned this ahead of time. Like once the event had come and gone, and we realized we want to baptize the baby and it's not scheduled yet. We were like, man, I wish we had scheduled this 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like that was the natural conclusion we reached of like, oh, the most efficient way of going about this event, which we know 100% of the time we will always want to do, is to plan ahead, you know? And it just was like, but why is it weird that we're planning a baptism for the baby that hasn't been born yet when we know, just around when that baby will be born, you know?
Did you send out
So it's
save the date
like,
cards for your wedding?
right, 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 So it's like, I'm saying right because the answer to that question is yes. but you know what I mean? So it was interesting, but at the same time, so it wasn't, I think originally and regretfully, it was from a place of fear, right? But then it developed,
Hmm.
you know, from this analogously from like attrition to contrition, you know what I mean? Imperfect to perfect, of like fear to no, I want the good for my son. Um, and like how happy I am, right? Not that God's grace can't reach an unbaptized person, but it is good that now when I pray for my son or I use holy water, and bless my son with holy water on his forehead, and like the whole idea is a piece of it is that it's a reminder of your baptism, It's like great, now he's been baptized, like
Right.
score,
Right. It's more real.
you
It's
know.
just that much more real and how powerful.
It's just more real.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then tell me, yeah. All right. Tell me something about Renee. Uh, we've talked a little bit about her and like how you appreciate her differently as a result
Yeah.
of this whole experience of watching her give birth,
Yeah.
and you have this new admiration for her as you watch her with your son, um, and as you guys talk together. What do you admire most about her motherhood?
Her patience. Her
Mm,
patience. That was a quick
With
answer,
you
but
or
it's
with the
because it's the
baby?
most both. But the yeah, with the baby, you know, like I I mean not that I would get sick of holding him. That's not really what it is, you know. It's just that she is always holding him. You know what I mean? Like I mean I hold him obviously, you know, but it feels like she's always with him and is thrilled to be,
Hmm.
you know? So it's like I hope, and I mean this in the best of ways, not to devalue my own love for my son, right? But like if my love for my son were equal to hers, you know,
Hmm.
like that would be awesome, you know? And it's because there really is this difference between a mother's love and a father's love. Like it's just this different idea, or it's not a different idea. It's just a different expression,
Yeah. Well, and that
you
you're
know?
able to say, I wish that
And
my love would
yeah.
be even a fraction of hers. Like you're
Yeah.
recognizing the gift of the love that she gives to your son. And you're
Oh,
recognizing
it's
that it's different than
unbelievable.
yours. And you're desiring that the love that you give would measure up to the love that she gives. That I think that's a beautiful
Right.
thought. That's a beautiful thought.
And that's the thing. I don't think I don't actually think it's like, oh, Matt loves Michael less than Renee. You know what I mean? I don't think that's what it is, you know. It's just this different form, you
Yeah.
know. It just takes a different form. And I can see it so clearly in her, you know. And there is truth to the idea that we see things easier in other people than in ourselves, you know.
Mhm.
So it could just be that,
Well, so
you know.
going off that truth that it's easier to see things in other people than it is to see in yourself, what do you think your greatest strength as a father is so far?
I don't know. I don't know. I would have that. I'm slower to answer that question. Not. I'm. You know what I mean? Like I think that I have done a good job of telling him that I love him.
Hmm.
I think I've done a good job of not. I don't know. I think I've done a good job of being present. You know, saying before, right? I'm making this active, you know, effort to be present with him. I think that I have done a good job of actively being present.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I've done a good job of praying for him, you know, and so not shirking that responsibility that is my spiritual headship for this family,
Yeah.
you know, and like getting the baptism done early, you know. And so I like and I, again, like a lot of it is returning to perseverance, you know. And maybe that's because sloth has been a weakness of mine, right?
Hmm.
It my whole life laziness has come real easy, you know, as it does, you know, instead of like this is going to sound so silly, you know, it's going to sound dumb. Pre Michael, Matt Sparazza gets lost on YouTube every day. Post Michael, Matt Sparazza has gotten lost on YouTube literally once and for like 20 minutes. And then it was like, what the heck am I doing? My son's out there, you know? And it's just this like, and that's kind of why I compared it to this maturation, you know?
Hmm.
Because I see that as a maturation. I see that as a growth in myself, uh, you know, tending toward a perfection.
Have you ever heard of Dr. Janet Smith?
I haven't.
So Dr. Janet Smith, she's a theologian, and she taught. I think she still teaches there. I'm not sure at Sacred Heart
I love
Seminary in
theology.
Detroit. Yeah, I know you do. But Dr. Janet Smith she's been like a very important voice in the life of the church for a long time. And I remember like 20 years ago, I listened to a talk that she was giving, and she said, when people have babies, most of them overnight become better people. And I thought that was a really interesting idea that like it's becoming a parent that requires you to grow up a lot faster. And it's because there's this natural process of maturing because you have a kid to be responsible for. Uh, you you have to stop doing some of the things that you used to do because there is now a human life that depends on your care, and so your needs are secondary to the needs of this new life, right? And then just people in general, as they start to take on those responsibilities, they start to step up into a place of virtue, into good habits. Now, of course, we know that there's the outliers and the exceptions to that, where there's some people who it seems don't become better people by having
Right.
children, but there is something so profound when people have kids, where you see the transformation, you see something different in them, and then you see this capacity for care and for responsibility just unlocked in a really beautiful way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think the one that I'm seeing now most vividly in myself is that greater responsibility.
Mm.
And perhaps that's because I grew up during the time that I did, you know, having grown up really in the early 2000s, you know, and with a mother who loves me so much, right, that she was willing to do things for me, you know. Um and so taking on responsibility has not been something that I always did naturally,
Mm.
you know. And so to see that growth and responsibility and then to respond to it is something that I think, right, to circle back to that question, I think that's what I'm doing best. um because and maybe it's because like I at no point did I not care about Michael, you know,
Yeah, of course.
like and 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 that isn't to say, right, like I said before, right, I am like praying for him, you know, and trying to care for him, but and to an extent, right, I think definitely my care for Renee has improved as well, or at least, again, like it's flowering into something new. And it is only 3 weeks in, so I'm still figuring it out as we go here. You know, I am sure it will continue to bud. Um, but yeah.
All right, so then the last question, and this is I think this is really the crown jewel of it all. All right, 3 weeks in, um, yeah, what have you learned that you want to make sure you retain, so that when the next kid comes along, you're really ready to go?
Um,
No, 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 you're not even thinking about the next kid yet.
I mean, yeah. What do I want to retain? I think to a couple of things, right? Like off the bat, the experience of what labor was, um, and just like how to appropriately respond to it, how to deal with it.
Hmm.
I mean, and I'm thinking of that in the context of, so she ended up getting an epidural about halfway through, and they took me out of the room. So and the back story to this is that in college I had a spinal tap done, so I know that procedure aesthetically, you know what I mean. And when they did it for me, they took them like 3 minutes, you know what I mean? Actually, it took them like 6 minutes because they stabbed me 3 times because they kept missing. But
Ouch.
that's a whole separate story, you know what I mean? But like I know I was familiar with the procedure. They were explaining we stick it in the spine, if it leaks, you know, blah 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 blah. Um, and in my head, oh, I've had this done, sort of, you know, super quick. And they took me out, and I was out of the room for like 45 minutes. Right? So I'm sitting in the waiting room while my wife, who's getting contractions every like 2 minutes that are like super painful, you know, is getting this epidural. Um, and so I think a piece of it is like just knowing, hey, this is like fast. This is not as fast as you think it is.
Yeah.
You know, like from just a very practical perspective of like, you're in this for the long haul here, bud. You know, buckle up. Um, Another thing is, I don't know, the importance of relying on family,
Mm.
or at least the impact that it has. You know, her in-laws were here for my in-laws here. Were here. Now her in-laws would be my parents. My in-laws were here for 2 weeks, and we were really grateful to have them here. And it was awesome because like I actually got some sleep, and she actually got some sleep.
Awesome.
But also like the importance of having that family time, the three of us,
Yeah.
was really sweet, you know? Not that, you know what I mean? In a good way. I mean, both of these in a good way. So the importance of like family bonding even now. And especially continual bonding between Renee and I, right? It's not like there is the danger of you see your love outside of you externally, and so you kind of disregard that one-on-one, you know, but it's still good to do that one-on-one. So I don't know that.
I think that's really good.
Maybe I should eat more vegetables. That's something I've taken. I'm dead serious. I'm like, I gotta change my diet, man. I got a kid. I don't want to die when this kid's like 10.
It's time to take care of your health now, son.
Yeah. And so I'm like trying to eat healthier. I woke up the other day. I was like 3 eggs has 120% of my cholesterol for the day. No, sir. 2 eggs today.
Only 90% then, right? 80%,
that's right.
Something different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 65, 70 or something. I don't know.
Well, so here's like outside looking in. This is what I've seen that I think is really important. First, you guys FaceTimed me like a week and a half ago, and it was just great to see you guys, the 3 of you together. I thought that was really beautiful. But I want to go back to what I said before about you guys, like you, Matt, taking paternity leave. And actually getting these days off and staying off, not working, not going in, not doing stuff, and basically being, let's say, being unreachable for a little while. I think that was super important, and I think it was great that you were able to take that time. That would be the first thing, kind of outside looking in, that I see happening. But then the second thing is that for every single text that you have sent to me, it has had some reference to Renee or to Michael. So you have been so considerate of your wife and of your baby. And I think that's the most important thing. And then even sitting down to record tonight, just sitting and talking with you, this was all based around, and we changed our time more than once so that we could get this, because it was all based around the needs of your family. And I think you're prioritizing things exactly the way they need to be. You know, it's Renee, it's Michael, it's all of you guys together, and then it's the tangent after that. You know, I wouldn't mind if it was like Renee and then the tangent and then Michael, or the tangent and then Renee and then Michael. But you know, obviously that's not really the important thing. What we really want is for your family life to be a blessing. So let's keep it that way, right? No, I'm really proud of you. Really, really proud of you.
Thanks, Father. Hey everybody, this is Matt Sprazza. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Tangent. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to follow us at thetangent_Catholic on Instagram. It's one of the ways that we get our content out to you. So once again, thank you for listening, and see you next time on The Tangent. God bless.